I was born in Summit, South Dakota, way up in the northeast corner of the state, 1923.
Do you have any family? Any brothers and sisters?
Not living.
What was everyday life like for you back then?
Well, my dad worked on the railroad and he was a preacher.
Okay.
And so whenever they had some extra work to do on the railroad, I'd go work on the railroad, see. I'd just walk out of school for a couple of days and work there, you know. And then I'd work on the farms, along a lot of farms. Because we had cows and chickens and pigs. And so I knew all how to do it, how to take care of those things. So the old farmers, when they had something to do, they'd come to the house and get me to come out and work for them, see. So 50 cents a day, which was a lot of money in them days.
Clearly they weren't too strict on school attendance back then.
Well, no, I just, well, my dad, he was president of the school board. I don't know if that made any difference or not. But no, I just, in the wintertime, why, they'd have snow to shovel at the depot. And I'd take off a couple of days and shovel that. And then the switches, one engine would hook onto the train, two engines coming up the hill from Millbank to Summit, and then from Waubee up to Summit. So they'd come up to Summit, and then they'd drop the engine off, the helper engine, and he'd back into that Y and turn around, and he'd wait for he'd back up to the next train coming from the west. And then lots of times I'd have to take care of that engine while it was waiting for that to go back to the west. But I was 13, 14. I was doing all that, see, and I'd done it. One time they let me, I was sitting there and they let me, I went into the old depot agent and I said, you know, I'm about getting pretty low on water. There's a steam engine, you know. I said, I think I better go down to the standpipes and get some water. Well, he said, all right, be careful. And I was about 14 years old. I knew how to run that engine. And I run down there and didn't really need any water, but I put some in anyhow and backed her back up again. You know, they go crazy today. They'd never let a kid in, wouldn't even let him in there. Yeah, and I just run that engine, I just play around with it, you know.
Were you married before or after the war?
Well, during, I suppose.
Oh, okay.
When I graduated from high school, I was 17 years old. And that's when I graduated, and I was going to go to college at Aberdeen. And in those days, the boys would get in some farmer kid's car because they wouldn't let the town kids have their cars uptown to block the road, you know. And so the girls, they'd walk around the sidewalk, arm in arm, like my 3, 4 of them in a row, you know. And that's the way it went on Saturday nights. The boys would ride the cars around and the girls would do the walking, see. Well, then the one time we was going around there and there was 3, 4 girls walking, and one of the kids knew one of the girls. So we stopped and started talking to them. I didn't know who they were. And anyhow, this guy driving the car, he told them to come on and get in. Well, the other 2 couldn't go. They had to go home, you know. So this one girl, she got in. Man, I never seen her before, you know. She was a pretty one. Come up from Millbank. So that's how we met. Finally, we went together then. So I give her an engagement ring that night, that Sunday, or Christmas. And we went, then when the war come along, I had got drafted, and I picked where I wanted to go, you know, Army, Navy, so I ended up in the Army, and I went to Fort Snelling. And I went up there and we got zeroed in, or I don't know what you called it, but we got all our shots and stuff. And then we ended up out in California. I was at Camp Roberts, California there for about 10, 14 weeks, learning how to fight in the desert. Well, about that time, the war was over in the desert. So moved us up to Fort Ord, California. But they give us 10 days delay en route, they called it, see. I had 10 days off, so I wrote and told my wife, or my girlfriend, that if all the married guys, they claimed that their wives was getting $50 a month, see. And I was only getting 50. So I told my girlfriend that. I said, you know, we ought to get married and you'd get $50 a month while I'm gone. She thought that was a whale of a deal. That was a lot of money in them days, you know. So that's when I come home like this, see, on that delay en route in the middle. And so one day, it was I don't even know what day it was, Friday or Saturday, but we went down to a preacher's house and got married. And that night we went to Aberdeen for a honeymoon. And we went up to the Sheraton Hotel there in Aberdeen. I was a little bit cautious, you know. I thought, no, I'm in uniform, you know. I wonder if they're going to let me in this hotel with this girl, you know. We got in. We got a room up there. It was afternoon by that time. And we go in this room and there's a bed, and in that corner was a bathroom. Well, I thought, boy, I'm really in now because I know all about them bathrooms. I'd seen them in service, you know. We never had any before. No radios, no bathrooms, no nothing. So I got my pajamas and I go into this bathroom, and it had a pull chain to flush the stool, you know. And boy, I thought I really had it over on her that time. She didn't know what an indoor toilet was, see. So I go in there first and I come back out. And she took her nightgown and she went in there. Looked it over and she come back and she stood on that side of the bed and I'm on this side of the bed. And we didn't know what to do, you know. So we looked at each other across that bed for a while, talked a little bit, and finally we just went to bed. She got in on her side and I got in on my side. And that's what that was. And the next day then we got up and I had to go back to Fort Snelling that afternoon. So we got back to Summit and I got in the train and went up to Snelling and then back out to California. Well, that's when I find out that these married guys their wives was getting 50. So yeah, she thought that'd be a whale of a deal if she'd get $50 a month, but they took 30 away from me and gave me 20, and she got 50. You know, I mean, this is back in the days we had no television, no telephone, no electric lights, no indoor plumbing.
Wow.
No nothing, see? It was just, that's the way it was. You know, we had no communication, really. There was a weekly newspaper in that little town where I lived, and that's the only news I got was on that newspaper. So I remember getting on that train at Fort Snelling, and it's kind of a troop thing. And I wake up in the night and I looked out the window and we're still going, but all I could see was water. I thought, now I wonder if this train's going across the ocean the way it is. I asked the guys, where in the world are we? Well, he said, we're going across the Great Salt Lake. But at that, you know, it was night, and it looked like there was a great big ocean. All I could see was water. But, you know, I wasn't used to seeing anything like that. We'd come out of a drought. There wasn't grass, there wasn't anything around up here, see. It was just plumb bare. Well, then I seen all that water and I couldn't hardly believe that. And I got clear out, I got to California in Camp Roberts, and we went through this basic training. Desert fighting was to go over to Africa. Well, then we got just about done, and the war was over in Africa. So then they gave us this delay en route, and that was a 10-day thing, and that's when I went back home and got married and come back. Then I went up to Fort Ord, and they gave us jungle training up there. And then we went overseas, and man, went in this great big ship, this troop ship, you know. I think there was 4,000 of us in there. A lot of guys, and they had the beds, you know, stacked up to where if you didn't hardly dare raise your head up when you was in there because you'd hit the guy on the top of you. But we went clear down to New Caledonia, and we down there. Then we changed ships down there, and we went up to Bougainville, which was another island. And then we got off the ship there at Bougainville, and it was kind of a staging area. They bulldozed all the jungle away from the beach for a ways back, and they was giving us training to go in on the next mission. So we went in there, and there was some tents in there, and they put me in one of them tents. And then to go out and eat, we had our mess gear, and we got in line and held your mess gear out like this, you know, and they just put the stuff on it. And by golly, you know, up ahead of me was 2 Japs in line, all dressed in your uniforms, you know, and everything. They slapped the stuff on there too. I got back to the tent, and I said, this other guy said, what in the world? I thought we were supposed to be fighting these Japs. Oh, well, he said, there's a few of them left up there in the mountains, in the jungle. And he said, they come down in there, and he said, they're hungry too, so we just feed them. That jungle, my goodness sakes, you'd walk from here to that wall in that jungle and turn around about 3 times. You couldn't find your way back out. It was just that thick, you know. Well, then we got on this boat at Bougainville. Then we get on this invasion up at Luzon, going into that. Now, you know, when they go through that China Sea Strait there, you know, and we got up there, and we run into a great big storm, and all those guys are on top of this deck of this old Liberty ship, you know, and we got into that storm, and by golly, the front end of that old boat would come clear up out of the water, and so would the back end. You know, there'd be a wave come underneath it. And man, that old ship would just shake, you know, when that prop would get up out of the water. Now, I thought we was going to drown, but we didn't. We went back. So we landed on this island of Luzon, and that's the summer capital of the Philippines, main island. Well, when we went down into Manila then for a couple of weeks, when we landed on the island of Luzon, there was 114 in our infantry company. And we fought down through Manila about 2 weeks. And then we got relieved for payday. Switched off with another guy, and they went down there. We lined up for payday that night, that afternoon. And out of that 114, there was 39 of us lined up for payday.
Wow.
That's all that was left, see? So I figured, boy, this old kid from South Dakota will never get home out of this mess, you know. That night I just prayed to God that it was up to him, whether I got home or not, you know. I had been a kid of a preacher, you know. That's all I knew what to do, you know. And you know, from that day on, I was never afraid. And they made first scout out of me, see. When the company would push, it was all jungle or mountains, one of the two. You'd get in that jungle and you go from here to there and you couldn't find your way out. And that's the way I went. Then they had rice paddies when it was clear, and they raised rice. And around the paddy, they had a perimeter around it with a ditch in the top. And they'd get the water in there and run it all around there and irrigate them rice paddies. So they made what they called the first scout out of me. I had to go out there first and walk through there so that they wouldn't get the whole company trapped in a trap. And so we'd get lined up, and they'd get everybody ready, and the old company commander, he'd say, "All right, Steenberg, take off." And I'd have to go out across that open pasture, you know, and see if anybody shot at me. Then I'd hit the ground, and if there was a rock, you know, as big as your head, you get lined up with him on that, and he wasn't very apt to hit you. He just wasn't that good. That's the way that went.
So which unit were you in?
137th Infantry Division.
Okay.
And 129th Regiment. The regiment was a National Guard outfit from Chicago. And the 37th Infantry Division was a National Guard outfit out of Ohio. Yeah. So there was a few of us replacements, you know. They liked that. They send us out first, you know. Well, the odds weren't too good, but I done it.
So were you ever wounded in combat?
Yeah, that's where I got the Purple Heart. Well, one day they sent us up. There was a great big field artillery gun, and they had it rolled out on tracks, wooden tracks, and back in a cave. When they'd roll it out and shoot it at our side, and then they'd back it into that cave, and we couldn't get it knocked out, see. So they sent me and 3 other guys up there to knock out that artillery thing. Well, I guess I was the buck sergeant by that time, you know. I was the boss, so I had my rifle, and each one of them guys had what do you call it? A bomb-like thing, see? Mortar thing. And I sent one guy around the thing on that side, and he put a charge under that. They had ammunition stacked up all around behind the back side of both of that. So he put his in there, and then the guy on my side, he put his in that stack. In the meantime, I could see these Japs, you know, was kind of looking around to see what was going on. And the third guy, he put her down the barrel, you know. Well, it was about a 5-second fuse on them things. And this guy on this side, he's digging around, and he ain't getting back quick enough, you know. So I thought, well, I better give them Japs one more shot to keep him down, so to give him a chance to get out, you know. And that's the last thing I remembered. But that time, I got hit in this right side, and took my whole shirt off. I didn't know where I was at, and I was the only one there. I wake up, and the rifle got bent, and lost my shirt, and hat, the helmet was bent up, and I just looked around, I couldn't see nobody. So I got up and picked up my stuff and went back down to camp. It was probably about a mile. And the old company commander, he met me, and he says, "Hey," he says, "I thought you got killed." I said, "No, but see, in those days, we didn't have any ambulances or nothing. We had a Jeep with a litter carrier on top. And that's all that we had for an ambulance, you know. When somebody got hurt, they'd send that ambulance up to pick him up." So I said, "No, all I need is a new shirt, and new rifle, helmet." And, well, he said, "You better get down to the aid station and get that arm taken care of." I couldn't feel nothing in that. I didn't know whether I still had it or not, you know. And so I get down there, and the medics in there, he cleaned it all up and washed it all up and put it in a sling. Oh, he said, "You're going to be all right now." He said, "It's a long ways from your heart." And so That's the way that deal went. They had piles of shells on each side of that gun, see? And when these put them bombs underneath, the hand grenades or whatever they were, they just blew up, just a boom,
Wow.
But yeah, and it was a couple hours before I could feel anything in that arm. And it got my arm and leg, but that was all right. They sent me right out on another patrol.
So they didn't give you time to recover?
No, that was it. There was a guy there with a camera, and he wrote a story. He was a newspaper guy, and I don't know where that is. That's here someplace. But it told in there what had happened, and they sent it back to the mill bag, to the paper. Put that in, but that's how I got that Purple Heart thing. And I was always the first scout all the time. We'd come to a bare spot, and I'd go first, see. And it didn't bother me any, because it wasn't any worse than the ones behind. Because he'd say, all right, Steenberg, take off. Oh, Steenberg, he'd take off, God, what a deal.
So what was life like on the front lines back then? What was the food like and all that?
Well, there wasn't no front lines, really.
Really?
It was just, we had, the big deal, we had to go from Luzon, from the capital Luzon up to Baguio. And that was about 300 miles, as I remember. And so we went up there, and there was jungle. You was either walking through jungle or through timber. Just that timber, that was the son of a gun, The trees there, it was all built on ash from volcanoes. And they had roots on them trees as wide as this table, and then it went up up this on the root. And that's to hold them down. See, that's the way they grew. Man, a Jap he'd get in that corner of that root and pop out and shoot at you and duck back in. You didn't have time for nothing. There's always something. Then we get into the forest, and it's a lot like going up here at the Black Hills, where there's much underbrush and stuff. You couldn't see nothing. So I was either in the jungle or I was in that, going up the mountains,
So did you all have any spare time during that? How did you entertain yourselves if you had any spare time or anything?
There was no spare time.
Oh, wow.
No,
So you never got any leave days or anything?
Well, there was a couple times that we got back to camp, and they'd set up a camp for us. We had time to take a bath and get a clean clothes. But that's all that amounted to, about 2 days, see.
Huh.
And then you'd write a letter, and you'd get the mail. Yeah, when we was going on the road up to Baguio, they'd be fighting on the road, and then they'd be fighting off to the side too, on the side hills, see. Well, one time I got into this bunch that was going down the road, and all at once there was a little monkey come by, and he followed me around. He thought that was, I don't know how, he kind of adopted me. We called him Tojo, and he'd run along the side of the road, and when he'd get tired of running, he'd make a jump and land on your full field pack back here. My God, it'll tip you over, He wasn't ready. Old Tojo. Well, then we got to going up there at night, digging our foxhole, and he'd crawl in the foxhole with me, see. And then the artillery shells was coming in, and he'd get scared, and he'd start crying, making a heck of a noise. And the Japs coming up the hills then would know just exactly where I was, So I seen a little Filipino kid, and I gave him the monkey. And I said, "You take care, Tojo." I said, and that's the last I ever seen of him. But he was a dog. He was big as this dog, you know, and a long tail. But he is really something.
So obviously you got a Purple Heart for when you were wounded. What are the 2 Bronze Stars for?
I don't know, kind of above and beyond the call of duty.
Okay, so there weren't specific events that they awarded those to you for? Do you remember?
Well, one of them, we got to the top of a hill. We'd been fighting all afternoon, getting to the top of this hill, and we got up there. And then the old man, he said, "Hey," he said, "we got a wounded guy here that's not going to make it if we don't get him back down to an ambulance or something, you know. He said, "I need a couple volunteers to go along down and keep the Japs away so the litter carriers could get him down there, you know." And so I think, well, I look over my buddy, he was at the other end of the line. I figured, well, going back down there wouldn't be any worse than staying there where I was at, you know. And so I raised my hand, and he was watching me, and he stuck his up. So we each got, took that guy back down. I think that's where I got it, one of them anyway. But you know, there was no communication. You didn't know you had anything till somebody handed it to you. You really didn't know what it was for. Huh. But that's how I got one of them, I know.
So do you still keep in contact? Do you have anybody you still know that you served with? Do you keep in contact with anybody?
Dead.
Wow.
They're all dead but me that I know of.
So do you participate in any of the things around here like the VFW or anything like that?
No. It just brings back too many memories. I just don't do it.
Yeah.
I got PTSD pretty bad.
Yeah.
When I was coming home, we landed in San Francisco, and we got on a train, and we went to Leavenworth, Kansas. And that's where we got mustered out, was at Leavenworth, Kansas. Got some new uniforms and stuff. And then I got on a train to come north, and the train, they give us tickets, and that train was on the Rock Island that I had. And I go up there to the depot guy, and he said, that train only runs when they got a full load and the wind's in the right direction. But he said, you can get on this other one, and it's going up that way. Burlington or something, that was. So there was quite a few of us from Aberdeen. There was from Aberdeen on there. And we get on that one, and we're heading north, and the conductor come by, and he bought 6 or 8 of us standing up in the back of the car. Well, he said, you can't ride this train. He said, your ticket's for the Rock Island. And this one great big old Pigler's guy, he says, why don't you just put us off? he left us. He didn't matter. So finally we got up the line quite a ways, and they all got the only ones left was me and the 2 or 3 from Aberdeen. And I got on another train, and he says, I just got on, he just got on, no tickets, you know. Well, I said, well, why don't you put me off? Well, he said, I'll tell you, if you help me load stuff along the right-of-way, you can ride along, but you got to help me and then load this stuff in. In those days, the farmers would put their cream cans in their egg cases at a little driveway like along the road, see, and the train would stop and pick up all that stuff and put it in one of the cars. So that's what I do. Me and another kid, we helped him load that stuff in the train, and we all went up to I got up to right close to Huron. And they put me on see, I had to go across up to Watertown and then some. And they put me on this train, and I was sitting there and looking out the window on the right-hand side. And by God, you know, it just hit me that I was going home. I had no idea up till then that I was going home. Man, I just started to cry, you know. Just couldn't believe it. And the people never said nothing. They didn't pay no attention to me, you know. I felt a little embarrassed. But then I got up to Watertown, and I called my wife. She was teaching school at that time, so over by Wilmot. And so she come up from Millbank and picked me up and brought me home. And then I got home, and I got a couple of pictures taken with my uniform on, and I got rid of that. Put some old civilian clothes back on, and I'm walking down the street of Summit, and a guy I meet a guy, and he says, "Hey," he said, "you been gone a while?" "Yeah," I said, "I was gone a little while." That was my homecoming, you know.
So do you remember exactly how long you were gone?
Oh, I didn't know. We didn't have a clock, no telephones, no nothing, no calendars.
Wow.
I suppose I must have known how long I was gone, see.
So do you remember exactly where you were when you got the news about the war ending?
Yeah, well, we was up on Luzon, up there around this Baguio, and they find out the war Japs had surrendered. So the National Guard guys, they all pulled them back out of the front line and back, see, where they'd be safe. They didn't want their own buddies getting killed. And they left us replacements up there, us peons, you know. And we was up there, and one day the company commander sent us up to pick up this General Yamashita. He was the general of all the Pacific things, and he was going to surrender. So they sent me and a second lieutenant up there with a bunch of trucks, and we supposed to get them guys, you know. And we walked down, and there was a shack in the middle of this field. We got in the shack, and we was sitting there waiting, and pretty soon here come these Japs walking in. There was three of them. One was the general, and one was a aide he had, and a translator, three of them. They come in the shack, and we talked. We could talk to the translator. He could talk English, and he was. So we talked a while, and they left. And they got out there a little ways out of the shack, and the translator, he come back in, and he says, "You know," he said, "the general's not gonna surrender to no second lieutenant. You've got to get somebody with more rank up here." So we didn't know what to do. He walked out. We looked at each other, and we each had our rifles, you know. And we thought, well, we'd just take them three guys, you know. Hell, dang, I looked around, and out around the perimeter, all you could see was Japs. I mean, a million of them, we thought, you know. So he says, "Get up there and get in the radio and tell them what's going on up here." So we had to get a higher ranking officer than the second lieutenant. And nobody wore any insignia, so you never knew whether you was talking to a general or a private. You couldn't tell. Everybody wore the same, because if the Jap thought you had a button on crooked or an extra button, you was an important guy, and they'd shoot you first, say. So nobody had any insignia. There wasn't nothing. So we get this guy, and we went back up there with him. No, I guess they said keep up. Now I don't know what rank he was. He was a major or something, one of these National Guard guys. And we had him walk by, in front of the building, and they all threw their weapons up there. Man, it looked like there was a million of them guys, them Japs, you know. And they threw them weapons on that pile and then walked over there. And when we got done, there was a pile there that was high as these windows and about the size of this room. It's all their rifles and everything, you know. And so we got that.
Did you save any as souvenirs?
Well, yeah, I got a, hey, sweetie, get my saber. So I did bring home that Japanese saber. And I find out from the guys afterwards, the Japs, that inside of that handle is a parchment with the whole family's history in it, inside of there. Where you at, sweetie?
I'm coming. We always thought it'd be fun to try to find the family of the ones that owned it once, but we didn't know how to go about it.
See, this is a Jap saber. Just feel of that blade. Be careful though, because it's sharp.
Wow.
Huh?
That's awesome. That's pretty sharp.
Before that, we was in Manila. That was the first 2 weeks of the war. We come to Intramuros River was the name of it, Intramuros. And in the middle of that Intramuros island was an island, and I don't know who it was, Arabs or somebody had built a big compound around on this island, and it was cement, and it was built like this, and underneath this cement it was high enough they could move their horses and everything in there, and then they had holes where they put the artillery shells in, and they could shoot out, see. Well, we couldn't get in, and they couldn't get out. But when we'd sit there and watch, we could look right in there, that compound. And about every day, there'd be some guys with these sabers would come out and stand in this island, in the middle of like almost like a football field. You know, it was a big thing. And the Japs had Filipino women and babies and everything in there as prisoners. No men, just all these women. And every day they'd bring a kid. About four of these guys would stand out there in that middle of that thing with these sabers sticking up, and they'd bring one of those little babies, kids, away from them women, and take it out there, and they'd throw that kid up in the air, and they'd catch him on these things, you know.
Wow.
You know, it just, you couldn't. A guy from South Dakota that had never been no place, he couldn't believe it. You know, well then I thought, well, I don't have any souvenirs from this outfit, I better get me something, you know. And this was laying right there, so I took it. I still can't operate hard, you know.
So that general you were talking about, was he over all of the forces?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I don't know my history very well sometimes.
He was over all the islands in southern Luzon.
Wow.
In the southern part, he was the head general.
And if you want to, you could go ahead and show the camera your medals and everything here.
Well, this is a Bronze Star here. That's a Bronze Star medal. And this is a Bronze Star medal.
So you didn't have any fancy presentations by high-ranking people or anything?
No. And then that's the Purple Heart there. No, they just give it to us.
We're on a jacket, Floyd.
This is the 37th Infantry Division patch here.
Okay.
And this is I don't know what it is, whether it's some kind of a core patch or something. We got these all down at where did I say I was, from Kansas? They're asking Fort Leavenworth. They give me all this stuff, right?
Okay.
I didn't have any uniforms, you know, I was all done. But so I just took it and went. But we know you didn't know when you got any rank. You didn't know whether you was a private or a sergeant, you know, what you was. In January, we landed on the island of Luzon, 1st of January, and by the 1st of April, I was a staff sergeant. Nobody left. I mean, it was just a matter of elimination, you know. I can't really get up once I get down.
PTSD.
Is there any more stuff? Yeah, I got PTSD. That's that. You get that in combat, you know.
Do you have any words of advice for the soldiers today?
Well, to the soldiers, huh? I don't know. You're pretty much on your own. When you get out there, you do what you know you have to do, and you don't really know. I don't know what rank anybody had. You know, I did get the second lieutenant right at the end to go with me when we went up to Yamashita surrendered. But outside of that, I never seen our company commander in uniform. He was, you would walk in, you wouldn't know him from the private. He's all alike, see.
What was your job after the war? What did you do just in the civilian world once the war ended?
Well, see, I had worked on the railroad before I went in. So when I got out, I could go right back on the railroad. So I went back there and worked on that railroad for, I don't know, 6, 7 months or something. But I had malaria so bad, and I'd work 5, 6 days, and then I'd be in bed for another 5 days with that malaria. And I could see where this wasn't going to work. I couldn't be in bed and work too. So one day the train stopped, and the guy gets out at the back end of the train with a clipboard. He said, "Steenberg," he said, "things have changed since you was here before." He said, "if you're going to stay here and work on this railroad, you got to join the union." And I said, "Fella, I don't got to do nothing." And I just walked away. Well, then I knew I had to do something different than that railroad. I walked by the barber shop going home that night, and there the barber sitting there swinging his feet reading the paper. It's 4:30, 5 o'clock at night in the afternoon. And I looked at that and I thought, now that's the job for me. That looked pretty good. So I quit the railroad right there, and I went to Sioux City and went to barber school.
When did you end up here in Rapid City?
About 1950.
Okay.
I come up out here. Then this friend of mine back there at Summit, he said, they're doing a lot of building out at Rapid City at the base. Yeah, he said, "How would you like to go out there and go to work with me?" Well, I said, "I don't know nothing about building." He said, "You don't have to, just come on out." So then we come out here and worked a while, and then we went and called our wives and had them come out. And we worked there quite a while. I barbered clear through till, when did I quit, Sudie? 85, 86? That's all I done was barbered.
I'm assuming Rapid City was a lot smaller back in your day.
Oh yeah. Yeah, it wasn't much of a town, you know, but the weather was nicer here than it was back there at that Summit. I didn't like that, man. We had snow drifts back there 30 foot high.
All right, is there anything else I didn't cover that you'd like to talk about, or any thoughts you'd like to add?
I don't know. Really, what's there to say? You know, you walked all day, fought. Those islands they were created with volcanoes. And they had all that volcanic ash would come down, see? And that's what they had for dirt, was that. And then the trees would grow in that volcanic ash, and that's why the roots stuck out so far, to give them stability, see?
I don't know if I asked you, I think I may have skipped over it. Do you remember exactly where you were when you first heard about Pearl Harbor?
Yeah, I was sitting with my girlfriend and her folks, and she had a sister, and a big shot boy. He come out. They had a radio, and he came out from Millbank, and he said they just bombed Pearl Harbor. That didn't mean squawk to me. I didn't know if that was 6 miles away or where it was at, you know. That's when I found out about that. And we had to, we had to go register for the draft, you know. And I got a card that I was supposed to go to the Army. Then I got overseas there, and one day we got a mail call. One day I got a card from the draft board, said that if I get on the farm, I wouldn't have to go with the Army. A little late. I mean, I'm clear over in the Philippines now. You know, but you know, there wasn't much communication. There wasn't hardly anything.
So you didn't have a telephone or anything
No,
like that in a radio?
No, we didn't have telephones. We didn't have electricity. We didn't have nothing. Outdoor toilets.
That's incredible.
You know, it was just, I don't know what you want to say, you know.
Do you remember about when you first got electricity, or when did you start getting all that?
Yeah, I remember just about the time the war ended, we got some electricity. Some guy come and put 2 wires up across the house and hooked a couple lights on it, you know. That was our electricity.
Wow.
And we had then the big shots had a battery charger, wind charger. And they charge up them 6-volt batteries and hook them up to these telephones. Or to the radio. They could hook them up, and that was quite a thing, you know, you see. So I'm another kid, and I had going with these 2 girls. So we'd go out there on Saturday nights to her place, and we'd sit there and we'd listen to the Grand Old Opera on that radios until the battery went dead, you know. That was it. When her mother pop popcorn for us, and we'd eat popcorn and listen to the Grand Ole Opry. That was our Saturday night entertainment. And that's the way it went. That was it. Yeah, we'd listen to that till midnight, and then it'd go off the air, see, and we'd have to go home. But I had been working on the railroad, which was a good job in them days. And I was the only kid in town that had a car. I had this Model A coupe, which ain't very big. We'd sit in there, you know, in that car on Saturday nights when she'd come to town with her dad and brother, and we'd go out west of Summit was a bridge, overhead bridge that went over the railroad track, and we'd go out there and sit on top of this bridge and watch some trains going, and it was a lot of trains at night. In them days, there was a lot of trains. About every 15 minutes, another train would go by.
Wow.
And we'd sit there and talk, you know. We'd talk about what we was going to do when we got married, you know. And I remember my wife, yeah, she said that if she had a girl when we got married, she was going to name it Judy Ann. And so when I got overseas, when the war was over, there was an old guy sitting there pounding rings out of gold coins. And then he was doing it by hand, you know. And so I had him make me a ring that said Judy Ann on it inside, in Philippines or something, I don't know. He engraved it with a bunch of stuff. And so I took that home with me when I got discharged. And that's the only time I ever seen her cry. She just couldn't believe it, you know, that I remembered that.